I don't think it is an understatement to say that we are really living in some very uncertain times. It's really easy for a lot of people to get lost in that and to really feel like life can be very overwhelming and that so much of it is just too much to take in and too much to handle sometimes. I think that with the advent of social media, although it has been a good thing in so many ways, social media has allowed us to be able to connect with the world and with so many different people in positive ways that we could have never imagined. I do believe that it has had its not so positive impact. Everything that is simultaneously happening in the world has come at us so fast, and never before have we had all of that information right before our eyes instantaneously all the time. That in and of itself is exceedingly overwhelming. No matter where you are, there's always going to be some sort of problem, issue, whether it's on a micro or a macro level. There are people living in places where there is constant concern for personal safety, civil unrest, political instability. And for them, these things are a daily and constant threat. And there are those of us that these things are only situations and circumstances that we are made aware of because of social media or the news. Although we can empathize with those people's plights and may even do our own parts to try and lessen the impacts for those people, there are a lot of us, particularly here in the United States, that don't feel those things or have not felt those things on a personal level until recently. In this video, I just want to speak to and address some of the fear and the anxiety that some may be feeling with all that has been happening within the last few months with what is been going on in the news and just in general. And this may look different for everyone. And again, this is something that affects people and is filtered down to people differently on the micro and the macro level. For some, it's about personal insecurities as it relates to their ability to provide for themselves and their families. For some, it is a matter of where they live. For others, it being or feeling unable to have a shot at upward mobility. For others, it is feeling stuck in life, feeling overwhelmed, like they will never ever be able to move past where they are right now. And I just want to offer a little bit of my personal insight into some of this. Sometimes you have to just take a step back and you have to just focus and put one foot in front of the other. And I know, people are going to say, well, that's maybe easy for you to say, I'm drowning. And you may not want to hear that because it's especially difficult for you in the circumstance that you may be in right now. But I want you to just hold on a second. It's easy to look at someone and make assumptions about who they are and where they've come from just based on what you may see in a split second or maybe an hour. But you really don't know where someone has been and the path that they've taken to get there and the struggles that they have themselves overcome to be able to give you a different perspective. And that perspective may be useful. It may offer a little bit of hope, just enough that you may need to just want to fight another day. In all my years on this earth, I've been a worrier. I've worried about a lot of things. I've worried about things that quite honestly have never happened in my lifetime. I have worried about the potential of the most cataclysmic outcomes of all kinds of combinations of disasters that one can possibly think of. And none of it has come to bear. I've worried about things from the bigger picture all the way down to the most elemental. I worried about things when I was a little girl. When I was a kid, there was a movie that came out. Now this may be giving some information about how old I am, but I think it's somewhat important to give some perspective. When I was a kid, there was a movie, I think it was called The Day After. And basically it was about what would happen in the world if there were a nuclear disaster, basically, if the US or the world got into nuclear war, or basically World War III, and what that would look like for everyone. I don't think there was anyone that I knew who had ever seen that movie that wasn't absolutely terrified of the possibility of that ever becoming a reality. Now, for perspective, at that time, that was very real for us because the political climate during that time was very tense. Now, even though I was a kid and didn't understand a whole lot about it, I remember watching the news with my family, and I remember the tense and very serious nature of the news and what was being discussed. And I remember the very palpable feeling of anxiety that I felt from the adults that were around me. The discussion about that movie and about what that outcome was. It wasn't just fiction and some grave or morbid parlance into the imagination. Everybody knew that, yeah, this was Hollywood's rendition of something that could happen. It was some writer's or director's idea of what could possibly occur. But deep down, all of the adults knew this could really happen. And if it did, this is what it would look like. And it scared people terribly. I remember even being that young, worrying about that. And guess what happened? We didn't have a nuclear war. We survived that. And then I got older, and there were more doomsday talks about the issues with what was going on in Iran and what that would look like if we went into a war with Iran. And we survived that. And then I got older, and there were talks, and everyone was afraid and scared of what was going on in Afghanistan. And we survived that. And year after year and decade after decade, we survived. And there were people through each one of those things around that kept saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the end of the world is coming, this is it, we're not going to survive this. And yet we did. And at some point I realized I'm not going to listen to them anymore. I'm going to follow my own internal compass. Yes, I'm going to be mindful and I'm going to pay attention to what's going on around me, but I'm going to have a balanced view because I have one important thing that has been my advantage through it all, and that is life experience has shown me that no matter how bad it looks or how cataclysmic it sounds, we've always survived it. We've always gotten through it. Cooler heads have always prevailed. You have to understand that there are some people that are heavily invested in creating narratives that terrify you, that want you to be whipped into a frenzy of fear and anxiety. And you have to have a balanced and sensible view. And you can't allow yourself to be torn and thrown here and there every time you hear something that sounds bad. You have to look at what's going on around you. When I go online and I see the videos and I see the social media posts about all of the terrible things that are going to happen and all of this, but I look outside of my window and I see my neighbors cutting their grass. When I go out to get my groceries and I see the men still holding the doors open for women, when I see the young men still holding the doors open for older people, I take notice. I pay attention. When I go to the grocery store and some random man pays me a compliment, even at my big grown age, I realize you have to live your life outside. Do not let yourself get lost in the frenzy of all of the crazy that some people, a small amount of people, want to suck you into. Because here's another thing that a very long and colorful life has taught me. Preparation is great. It's good. And you should be prepared. But here's a fact. You don't know what's coming. None of us do. There is not a single solitary person on this planet that can predict what comes next. And the best thing that you can prepare yourself for is the unexpected. You can prepare yourself for the reality that you don't know what's going to happen. So what helps me in all of this is knowing that regardless of what the outcomes are. I have options, and you should too, if you can. But if you don't, that's okay too, because you'll survive whatever it is. You'll survive it. All you have to do is stay calm, remain level-headed, make wise, intelligent decisions that are based on factual information and not on hysteria and panic and emotion. Make sure that the sources that you're getting your information from are as unbiased as they can possibly be, and vet those sources. Ask yourself the hard questions. Ask yourself, am I getting my information from a place that confirms maybe some bias that I have? Or am I genuinely looking for information that is based in truth and facts? What am I really looking for when I'm looking for the information? What am I really looking to find? If you find yourself feeling anxious, feeling afraid, just take a moment and just collect yourself. Assess where you are and remind yourself to put one foot in front of the other. Don't worry about what you have to do tomorrow. If you even have to think about what you're going to do in the next moment, if you have to get that granular with it, then so be it. In my line of work, I have had to see people in some very devastating situations. I've seen people lose their entire lives in an instant. I've seen people lose the people that they love, seen people lose their children, their spouses, their parents, their entire lives gone in a moment. I've seen parents send their kids to another parent for a weekend visitation and literally had to call them to the hospital to tell them their child had died in their other parent's custody, and watch that parent literally crumble to the floor. So when I tell you that I have personally witnessed some very life-altering and devastating circumstances, I am not exaggerating. I've seen it. I've watched other people go through it. I've experienced some very serious struggles myself, and I am here to tell you it's okay to be afraid. That is a normal human response, and it's okay to feel anxious. But what you don't have to do is let it paralyze you and let it cripple you into inaction. You can manage it. You can have victory over it. You can overcome it. And if that looks like literally just pulling back in the moment and telling yourself 1 second at a time, I only have to deal with this 1 second and I'll worry about the next second when it comes, then that's what you do. If it means that you have to shut off the social media, then do it. If that means that the people in your life who are triggering you into responses that make you spiral into negative thought, into feeling overwhelmed or fearful, then it's okay to distance yourself from those people for a while until you get into a better state mentally and emotionally. Focus on doing things that make you feel good, that bring you joy, that help you to feel whole and like you're in control. I want to end the video with this. Challenges and scary things are going to happen. No matter what happens, there will always be something else. There will always be something else. And the longer you live, the more something else's there will be. There will always be something else. Such is the nature of things. With the way that we are connected now, you will always hear about some war, some injustice, something going on. And there will sadly always be something that'll go on in your life. There's a saying, you either just left a problem, you're in a problem, or you're heading to a problem. I don't think there's a truer statement. It doesn't matter where you are in life. There's always going to be something that's going to happen that you don't want to happen, that you wouldn't want to deal with. There are going to always be things in life that are going to be challenging. And for most of us, if not all of us, we are going to be faced with things that are going to be fear-inducing, stressful, and terrifying at times. But you have to always understand one thing. You only have control over this. yourself. You have no control over what's going on out there. You are the steward of this right here. So this right here, you can control what you take in, how you manage this. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be anxious, but you can control what you do with it. And this too shall pass. This too shall pass. You're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.